Spin it. And then what? You mean nothing. Hey everybody, it's me, and I'm back. I didn't go anywhere, but I'm back. If you're planning on purchasing a home, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, I've got some information that you're gonna wanna hear. So let's focus, because today we're talking about due diligence. What is due diligence and why is it important? Essentially, due diligence is an agreed upon time period between the buyer and the seller in which the buyer has an opportunity to inspect the property and become familiar with the area around it. The due diligence period begins after the purchase and sale contract has been agreed to by both parties and has gone binding. Most people equate due diligence with home inspections, which is true to a certain extent. But why does Georgia have a due diligence period? Because Georgia is a caveat emptor state. Now what could that possibly mean? Yes, the lady and I would like your finest bottle of wine. Certainly, sir. That would be a caveat emptor 1985. That sounds delicious. Nope, that is not what it means. Caveat emptor is a Latin phrase that translates to let the buyer beware. Latin? Who would have thought? Now I can add caveat emptor to my other favorite Latin phrases. Et tu, Brute? Quid pro quo. I tell you things, you tell me things. Carpe diem! Basically, caveat emptor means that it's up to the buyer to examine, inspect, test, appraise, and survey the property at their own expense with prior notice given to the seller. In turn, the seller is required under Georgia law to disclose any latent or hidden defects about the property to the buyer in which the seller is aware of, and that could not have been discovered by the buyer upon a reasonable inspection of the property. Now, in addition to inspecting the property, it is also the buyer's sole duty to inspect the neighborhood and any conditions that might affect the property, such as landfills, quarries, power lines, airports, cemeteries, prisons, stadiums, odor and noise producing activities, crime and schools, land use, and government transportation maps and plans. So, why is a due diligence period important to you, the buyer? Because it essentially makes a binding purchase and sale agreement an option contract in which you, the buyer, can decide to proceed or not to proceed with the purchase of the property for any or no reason at all. Let me say that again, Sandlot style. For any or no reason. Due diligence is essentially a safeguard for the buyer. But if you discover a defect and you still want to purchase the property, you can submit what's called an amendment to address concerns to the seller. But that's a different video for a different day. If you want to know more about due diligence, give me a call or a text at 706-587-3803 and we'll sit down and talk about it over a couple of mint juleps. We're out of mints. Over a couple ice cold waters then. I'm Marty Upshaw for Bickerstaff Farm Real Estate, keeping it Realtor. That's so due diligence.